What's good, guys? The third episode of the Barons Club is live. We're joined today by my best friend Keyba. Keyba, it's so nice of you to join me today. And I just realized, you know what I just realized? I didn't put
What's
on
up,
my
man?
gear, man. I didn't put on
You're
my.
so unprepared today compared
No,
to everyone else.
I'm like one of the most unprepared people you could ever meet in life. Last minute things, but I somehow still get things
No,
done. So I'll just pretend
as
that you
long as
guys,
yeah,
I'll pretend that you guys don't see me awkwardly just putting this on stream. Just pretend it was always there.
that's the real now.
There we
Does
go.
that clown not get frat? Oof.
Does that what?
I said, does that crown not get flat?
No. Somehow, so I basically I try to put this thing between its sides, so like it doesn't get messed up. I'm pretty sure I need to buy one at some
Makes
point.
sense. Yeah, no, definitely. You need to get like a real one. Like, just go to one of those vending machines, buy the gold, and then smelt it yourself, so that way you get a gold crown.
Gold crown. I was actually looking
There you
up
go.
on Amazon like which crowns to go for, and there were some pretty cool crowns. Like ones are even going for like $200 or something. And then I saw this one, and I was like, honestly, it's better to keep it a meme. So I went for this one instead.
True.
Uh,
Very
Barut-
true.
Baruto is saying this is the MM we know. Yep, that's me, one and only. Hey, what's good to see you guys? Yeah, so today, third episode, we're gonna be discussing some interesting topics. We had the second episode with Enko and Sam last week, and this week we're going a full 180. We're gonna be talking about PvP and some World vs World debate. Keyba here, for those that don't know, is a pretty much a huge PvP player of the game. He's been pretty much doing that for most of his time in the game, and of course, at one point, he's even been a commander for World vs World, but not the blob commander. No. He was a commander for mini roaming squads, the ones that would, go in and kill 20 players and then run away and then go in, kill 10, 20 players and go back, and he'd do that with like a whopping 10 people somehow. So he's got a lot of experience in that too. Anyway, how you been, man? It's been a while, actually. Like yesterday we talked on Discord, right? And yesterday was like the first time in like a while since you and I had the chance to actually talk for a bit. So what you been up to, man?
Yeah, man. Well, lately I just I don't know, many people don't, if they don't keep up, Texas got destroyed by some snow. So that kind of was taking up a lot of time recovering through that. Also working on getting a new job, and then also working on YouTube content. So that's what I've been doing a lot. The funny part is, when I started focusing more on Guild Wars 2 content, I found less time to actually play the game. So yeah, that's pretty much how the last 2 months have been going.
Yeah, I found that the same. Like it's hard to balance, especially if you got things going on in real life. It's hard to actually balance playing the game versus just choosing to make content for the game, and it's really not the same thing. It's just a different
Yeah.
focus, right? Um, so yeah, I mean, we got some topics. We got a lot of notes to discuss. So first, before we get into any of the details of PvP and World vs World, introduce yourself to the viewers in terms of like, how did you start streaming? What made you want to become a streamer or a content creator to begin with, right? And what was it like making that decision?
Yeah, man. So I think it's because I'm a Leo, and I think my astrology sign says something like, you know, just kidding. In all honesty, dude, I've been into performing arts for the longest time. Like, I don't know, it's ever since I was young, I've been, it's weird to say, I was like a child, a kid's Gap model when I was younger. So it's kind of been a part of my I don't know, personality to have that, that light shine on me. But then also playing Guild Wars 2, I'm very passionate about it. I noticed that there was a little bit of a drought coming into the game with events in North America, especially. So I really wanted to just take it a step forward and just be a positive impact on the community, which is kind of where I started, and I think that's where we're going. But that's why I originally started to stream. It just wanted to one, share my knowledge of the game, share my love for the game, and then also just create community events for everyone to either enjoy by participating or enjoy by watching.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So it was kind of like you noticed there was something missing, and you were like, I could maybe do that for the community, and you basically kind of filled the gap that was missing. Uh, and I guess that's really how it came together for you.
Yeah, man. Like, so when I was living in California, one thing that I noticed that Rom, I don't know if many of you remember, he is a player on EU. He was a big PvPer and he made it through, I think he won a couple world tournaments. But as he was doing weekly 2v2s for the community, giving out ArenaNet sponsored gems, things like that, I noticed we didn't really have anything like that for NA. So what I decided to do, I mean, you were part of it too, but just so the community knows, and I decided at that point in time where, he would kind of help by sponsoring these tournaments that I was going to create, and I would just create them and do a lot of the admin work, which got me
Yeah.
a lot of attention from ArenaNet. So that's why they ended up sponsoring me, and I became a partner by doing a few of those. And yeah, that's pretty much what I decided because I wanted that to be on North America. I didn't want North American players to have to experience that by moving over to the EU servers.
Fair enough. Okay, yeah, I remember that time as well. Like you were coming up with quite a few tournaments like under, and like they were pretty frequent too. Like what was it like? You were doing at 1.1 every month or something. And around that time, right? I remember you got your partnership because you were basically doing something that for a while wasn't really being done. I like we know that there's a lot of PvP tournaments that get hosted, but usually those weren't being streamed or if I think at that time Teapot really had not even gotten into PvP as a focus, and so you were basically that gap that was missing for that time.
And I also think that a lot of the tournaments were around 5v5, which is great. But I wanted to do something different, which is why I started the 2v2 league. I think it really just, I mean, obviously now ArenaNet has the off seasons for 2v2 and 3v3, but at that time, there wasn't really anything in the game that made, it enjoyable or even where players could access some sort of tournament for that. And so that's when I think it was actually right after the first 2v2 tournament that ArenaNet had put as automated tournament when I was like, these are fun. They need to be more frequent. Let me just create a community event.
Fair enough. Yeah. And okay, so that makes sense. Like how you kind of from there also moved into content creation. I can't remember, but you were kind of creating content around that time, right? Or somewhat of content, right? You were kind of like the early days of Keyba before the days of like your
Yeah.
guides on YouTube.
Yeah, those back in the day, man. I was really trying to do like some roaming highlights, some like van style, I don't know, world v world content. I didn't think it was that good in all honesty. Like I was trying, but now that I'm being more self-critical, like that content was pretty dry compared to like, I was such a new individual when it comes to content creation at that point. But yeah, that was back in the day when I was really going into some roaming videos. I
Someone's
look 10 years younger without the beard.
yeah.
Nice.
I feel like everybody looks younger without the beard, right? Um, I don't know. That's a thing that happens. Um,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. So how did you get into Guild Wars 2? Like, so we talked about like you being a content creator, and what put you to becoming one. But how did you find Guild Wars 2, and what made you want to play Guild Wars 2? So what was really your first experience as a Guild Wars 2 player?
Yeah, man. I've been a gamer, I'm sure, as you and many of the community. We've all been gamers for our whole life. It's just a matter of transitioning from one game to another. And at the time, I think it was 2012. So I was in the Marine Corps and living in Hawaii. A lot of my friends at the time were hyping up Guild Wars 2 for me. I never really played Guild Wars 1. So, it was something new. And I really enjoyed when I watched videos at that point in time, like the combat system, because coming from like World of Warcraft before where everything was tab targeting, and it was like, I don't know, it seems somewhat in between like a turn-based system and to what Guild Wars is now. It's like right in the middle. It made me really enjoy something that had like a League of Legend-esque combat system with the targeting, the AoE abilities like that, but also the dodge rolls, the blocks. So that was one of the reasons that I was like, okay, let me play Guild Wars 2. My friends want to play it. They want to make a PvP team. And these are like my real life friends, not like online friends. So, from that point, we made a team. We sucked, whatever. Like we weren't good, but it was fun nonetheless. And yeah, so I mean, from there, I got into World versus World because they all quit at that point in time, which kind of demoralized me from PvPing. So I got into World v World, and that was a whole new level of entertainment. Um, and so that's kind of what kept me going, was that obviously, that's how I met Kara, which is my wife now. And I can say honestly that this is the longest game I've ever played in my life. It was one of the first. I was also kind of proud of the fact that I jumped into Guild Wars 2 when it was vanilla. So this was also the first game that I ever played where I started right on the day that it released. And I think I keep that as like a token of pride, where I never want to give that up either.
Fair enough. Yeah, it is. It's fun to like be a part of the game when it first comes out versus if you jumped into the game. It does make a difference. I definitely have to say. For me, Guild Wars 2, like following up from Guild Wars 1, the whole transfer from both games was fun, and getting to see the beta tests and various other times they let us play the game before it went live. And then leading into the game, yeah, the first few years of a game are usually one of the most exciting times. Do I agree? But also, it's amazing that you also got to like not only like have a few friends that like some of them maybe you don't talk to now, but most of them I know, the ones that play with you, you've basically met some of them in real life as well, right? And you've very much you've met Kara like in Guild Wars 2, right? And you guys are basically now living the dream, like literally the MMO couple. I have to say.
I would honestly say that Sword Art Online, if any of you have watched that, is the biography of where I wanted. Well, it's kind of inspired my life because, I'm the edgy guy who's wearing all black, obviously. And then, my wife, Kara, who we met through Guild Wars 2, we ended up meeting in real life. Funny story, I'll tell everyone about that, at a later date. But yeah, here we are, 8 years later, happily married. And we've met a lot of people. I think I've met around a total of 12 or so people in real life. I mean, I see Rosaka in chat. I met him in real life. And so I really take it upon myself, if I meet a friend, no matter if it's through a video game or if it's in real life, like I'm going to meet them in real life. I don't find the difference between a physical and a virtual relationship, in all honesty.
Yeah. Actually, we were supposed to. I was supposed to come to your party like a couple months ago. Fortunately, it didn't happen. But yeah, it's different. Like I don't know. For me, at least, I felt like it's always been different meeting someone in the game, and then like maybe you meet them in real life, and versus someone that you meet through a mutual friend, or you just happen to meet outside of like a real environment, basically. So I could see where you're coming from in terms of like, well, it really shouldn't make a difference. And I feel like you kind of sometimes have a better friendship with people that you've never even met online. Like we've never met, you and I, right? Like I just know you from Guild Wars 2, and we've known each other now for like 5 years or something.
Yeah.
But like you actually like realize like how much closer you have friends from like random games that you meet and MMOs that you play and everyone has the same passion for. Didn't really see that until later in my years in Guild Wars 2. At least even in World of Warcraft days, I didn't really see the whole thing of that. But then when you meet people that like this is someone I want to be a friend with, it does like you can tell like right away. Yeah, Roz is here actually.
I think Guild Wars 2 has a great community for that. Maybe it's the time, like the when it came out with technology changing. I don't want to get too off subject there, but I think Guild Wars 2 has also made it really easy for people to connect they had that whole friendships thing. There's plenty of stories. I'm sure we're not the only one where, we've met people or even met your wife through Guild Wars 2. It's kind of not an uncommon, but it's not as rare as you might think. But yeah, I mean, I think that's what makes Guild Wars 2 so unique and great is that, I've heard more stories in Guild Wars 2 than other games. Maybe that's just because I'm biased or my perspective is skewed from only really playing Guild Wars 2 for the last 8 years. But I think that was really awesome. And I think the community has a big role in that as well. Like everyone's super friendly, except for PvP. Just stay away from that. But that's what we're here to talk about anyways.
Yeah, stay away from PvP. Well, yeah, I mean, speaking of PvP, you've been a little, I guess, like you mentioned to me yesterday, you've been a little bit like hesitant of like getting back into the game, but you're very well, what the PvP scene is right now, and to get started on the PvP section, the PvP debate, like, what do you feel like right now in PvP? How's the atmosphere? Like, do you think it's heading in a good direction? Do you think there's something that needs to be improved? What's your general outlook of it before we dive deeper?
I mean, PvP hasn't changed in, like, for the most part. Conquest, they've added new maps, but overall the objective hasn't really changed, which I'm okay with. I know that some people may want like a different game mode, but in all honesty, we did have something like that with Stronghold and it flopped. Everyone went back to Conquest. I think the mechanics overall and the underlying fundamentals of PvP are good. What kind of makes it not so great is the double-edged sword of Guild Wars 2 mechanics, where because we're so focused on a 3-node system where you have to take over these objectives and they're kind of small, it makes it really easy for specific professions that have a lot of AoE damage or pressure in general to just kind of overwhelm the other team. And then it becomes a matter of, okay, well, who's going to just throw more, AoE bombs on a node and who's going to stand in it longer. So I think overall, that's kind of where the state of PvP, the underlying fundamentals of Conquest is fine. I think that could carry on into the later stages of Guild Wars 2. But where I really think that they need to figure out is minimizing the amount of damage, especially AoE damage and passive abilities in the game to make it more engaging for players.
Fair enough. Yeah, they haven't really. I mean, we've seen this now. Like, they haven't really introduced any game-changing PvP maps. I mean, we have what's it called, the Capricorn map, right? And that's a little bit different, where you have a side node that gives you an extra 25 points every time it goes up, right? And then it increases every now and then. But at the end of the day, that still feels similar to any of the other PvP maps, right? Where you are on Legacy, if you kill the Lord, that's an extra 150 points right off the bat. Or if you're in Temple has Stillness and what's the node at the bottom? Cap all 3 points. Tranquility. So at the end of the day, Capricorn might be slightly cooler in terms of like the appeal of the map. But yeah, kind of like another map that has just an extra bonus for players. But what did you think about? I remember when they released the champions, right? And the fact that they made a map dedicated to, kind of destroying like the other opposition's like base, and it takes some elements from Guild Wars 1 GVG. What did you think of that map itself that they released? I mean, that map was released when? Was it in Heart of Thorns?
Yeah, Heart of Thorns.
Something like that. What do you think of that map?
Honestly, that's where I think, I don't think it's very Smite-ish. I think Guild Wars 2 is way too fast-paced of a game for something like that. MOBAs generally last about 30 minutes or so. League of Legends, Smite, I don't know if Smite does or not, but I know games where you're having to attack a base or a fortress, kill off a node or whatever, those are kind of slow-paced games. They ramp up. And that's why you have, with League of Legends, you have like the level 1 through 20 system. You start out small. In Guild Wars 2, what it just seems like is everyone with supplies or whatever, the fact that everybody can just run into the middle of the node, fight each other, and then as an individual, you can just go break a door. I mean, these things last 3 minutes. So I don't think, like, fundamentally, maybe if they were to really look at that game mode, take a step back and try to revamp it. Right now, it's not good at all. Personally, that's how I feel. That's why you don't see a lot of tournaments around it or players engaging in that stronghold game mode. But if they made it where the bosses at the end or whatever the nodes, if they did like a trifecta where they had like 3 or 4 bosses until the final boss, to slow down the game a little bit, maybe it would be better. But right now, as it stands, I don't like it, and I think it was a good attempt. Don't get me wrong. I love the fact that they tried something new, but it definitely failed, and they never adapted to it, and they never changed it. They threw it out there, and it's actually kind of been the same mode ever since the beginning of its release. There has been no updates on it.
So is it the fact that it's kind of like a fast-paced, it's still pretty much a fast-paced map, or there isn't much to counter once because once I think your team activates their champion, it's pretty hard to stop them, right? I mean, and at the point that a team would activate their champion is the point in where that team would probably be zerging or something, right? They've at least attempted to form a comeback or like quickly try and counter whatever the other team's doing. So is it because the map is fast-paced you think it fails because it fundamentally doesn't give chance or leeway to really like take something by surprise, or do you think it's just really to do with the map mechanics itself?
I think overall it's everything. I think it's map mechanics. I'm just gonna. I love to cross-reference different games that do the same thing, especially with like Stronghold, where it's the MOBA style of map. And with Guild Wars 2 versus a traditional MOBA, if you die in like League of Legends or whatnot, your respawn time gets exponentially longer. So realistically, if I die or if we wipe a team, then in that game, even if we're losing, if we end up wiping a team and the respawn is like 2 minutes long, we could actually come back. But in Guild Wars 2, the respawn timer is set at 20 seconds or so, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter how many times you die, it's going to be the same amount of time. So even if you do a team wipe and you try to come back, you only have 20 seconds to attempt that. And it's going to make it really difficult for you, especially if you're playing against good players who just are mechanically, more experienced. So I think that in itself makes it, I think it's too fast. Guild Wars 2 is way too quick. It's too fast paced of a game to implement that unless you put some restrictions overall in the game mode, or you add extra layers of tower defenses. Maybe make some of the mobs in that game mode a little bit stronger, so that way even the champions can kill you or whatnot. So yeah, I mean, theoretically it should work like on paper, but it just doesn't work for a lot of different underlying reasons. That if they wanted to make something like that work, they really have to look back, kind of scrap the whole project and start all over, in my opinion.
Fair enough. But also, one of the things that makes it like fast-paced in any of the maps that you play in PvP is also the fact that like you got what is pretty much the combat system. It is a fast-paced combat system. Now, it is, I think, in my opinion, still the best combat system compared to any other MMO right now. But it ultimately also comes down to the combat system, right? Because it is very fast-paced.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Maybe what ArenaNet or Guild Wars 2 should do is not try to find something like that. I think, like I said, Conquest works. Conquest is the bread and butter of PvP. Personally, I feel like the maps that they've had in the past are fine. I like the mechanics. I like that each map has a different mechanic, such as the Stronghold or the Capricorn one, and not the Stronghold, I'm sorry, but like Legacy or the Forest one with the bosses that give you the buff. Like, I personally do enjoy all of those. What I have an issue with is the amount of passive abilities or the amount of AoE pressure that one class can do versus another, because that really does take away. Let's just use like Warrior, for example, because, obviously, as you might know, or hey guys, surprise, I play a lot of Warrior. And by playing Warrior, especially like if I want to be a DPS spellbreaker I'm just throwing out a random class out there that don't take this like just very surface level. If I really want to, I don't really have a lot of AoE pressure aside from like the full counter, right? Full counter is somewhat AoE, but with regards to like a lot of my skills, it's it's like I don't know, very weak compared to say a Necro that can put marks from 1200 range onto a node, and even a Scourge that has a lot of barrier application, or just the F skills on a Scourge can do a lot of AoE damage without you even having to have a target locked on. So to me, it requires less effort to play that Scourge, and by requiring less effort, I can maximize the effectiveness of that. Whereas Warrior, it may require me to focus a lot harder. I may have like sweat beating down from my head at the end. But even still, even when I try so hard, I may only be 75% as effective as that Scourge. And so that's why I think that's where the problem really lies, is maybe a little bit more of the balancing around those specific key abilities.
Yeah, and that's actually been a long time problem for the game, right? I mean, especially ever since the introduction of HOT, we've been going through so many different balances over the years. I mean, before HOT, there wasn't even much of a balance. Pre-HOT, pretty much everything was power, right? That was the way to go for almost everything in any game mode, right? And when the HOT came out, they pushed finally the meta to change to something different, and that difference was switching to Condi. And now we're in that era of like post POF, where we're pretty much now going back and forth between power and Condi, and different specs offer different variables to their build. But that's been the key issue, right? Balancing. And in at least the last year, if you remember, in early 2020, I believe, was it May 2020 or April 2020, we had the first, I wouldn't say first balance patch, but the first PvP overhaul patch that like kind of changed some things, right? I don't know if you remember. It came around the same time as I think Moda was about to kick off, and that was, I think, something that they were kind of considering in the tournament, right? Teapot and they're all like checking whether or not there'd be some changes, and some of those patch changes, for example, weren't really necessarily nerfing many classes. Like Condi Herald, I think, did not really receive much of a nerf. Condi Herald was still pretty good. Tempest was still pretty much what it was, and of course the Glyph is still a very OP skill to use if you'd like to revive somebody on the spot. Something that we've even seen in the tournament was heavily used, right? Like, I mean, all European teams, and I think at one point even the American teams started using the Glyph, and that was basically prolonging fights longer than usual. Just to give some examples. So what would you say the balance patch, at least post May, or in the last 2 months or 3 months, we also received one more PvP patch. Do you think it's heading towards a good direction, or do you think it's still not changing much?
So, obviously take this for the amount of time just prefacing that I've actually been playing Guild Wars 2 and paying attention to what like the meta is, things like that. It's only through dailies now. I log on the game, I do my daily. For the most part, I'm focusing on the other content. That's how much PvP exposure I get now. But I have noticed a lot of patterns where there's certain classes that are out right now, and I don't think anything's really changed. I think the balance is I don't see a good direction yet. Obviously, that could change with End of Dragons coming out. We don't know yet. But right now, as it stands, from what I can tell, it's just a matter of, it's the same thing fundamentally. 5 months ago, whenever we did have the overhaul, we had Renegades just dropping a bunch of AoEs on nodes, and everyone got upset with that. Now we have Scourges, Mender Scourges. I'm pretty sure that that's something that's been popular. I've been fighting a lot of those lately in my games, and those are very annoying to fight. So overall, it's the same thing. Because of the fundamentals of Conquest, a lot of the times you're going to find players finding the best way, which you can't blame them, right? I don't blame any of the players for playing any of these classes or builds. But, we got to understand, like, because of the fundamentals of the game, they're going to adapt to what's going to make them have the highest chance of winning. So, for the balance patch, I don't see any positive changes as of yet. I think it's flattened out. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see when another overhaul comes out.
Yeah, that's right. And it's also, again, it goes back to the questions. Like, you can only change or do so much and it to really be effective, right? Because you nerf something else goes overpowered. You power up something else gets nerfed. So it's really, we're getting to that level of like, it's really very, very difficult to really get a balanced patch that will actually maybe help each class. And right now it's just too many specs maybe is what's causing difficulty in balancing anything, right? So I'm interested to see how they take it forward, because I mean, speaking about the expansion, like that's something that'll also be discussing, because when you look at the expansion, people are expecting another set of elite specs to come out, right? And whole set of elite specializations. And how's that gonna be enrolled with like what we have currently? Are they gonna, you think they'll release a balanced patch that would basically prepare us for the expansion? Would they release a balanced patch with the specs in the expansion, like basically see how the specs fare in the game once they've at least had a month or two to be played with? So what do you think? Would they prepare before knowing what they know about their specs before the expansion, or would you think they'd wait a little bit, see how the specs play out, and then do something?
Yeah, I mean, history says that it's gonna be they're gonna just throw them out there. Everything's gonna be unbalanced for like 2 months, 3 months, and then they're gonna start fine tuning it. That's exactly what happened in Heart of Thorns and Path of Fire. Funny enough, the best time we ever had balance in PvP and World versus World was right before the expansion dropped. And honestly, yeah, everything was pretty balanced. Every class had at least a place in the game. But then Heart of Thorns came out, or I'm sorry, Path of Fire came out, and it just all went to crap again.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that, honestly. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Don't think it's.
I was gonna say, I don't think it's really that hard to balance. To be honest with you, I think what the problem is that they start focusing on highlighted issues where, you get a forums post or a Reddit post or something. Someone says something's overpowered, right? I don't know. Let's just say, oh, Renegade is overpowered. It does this. So now everything's focused on Renegade. Whereas if they just look at it fundamentally with the game mode, right? Conquest, what is the objective? How do we make it to where each class has the most impact in the game, so that way one's not overpowering another? That's all they really have to do. And then from there, maybe they minimize the range of an AoE, they reduce the effects of a passive ability. Those are kind of things that really need to be taken into consideration. I don't think it's a lot of the damage application. I just think it's the ability for me not to have to press something and for something to work is what makes it very, very strong, if that makes sense.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it's funny enough. Like, I think the reason why we had that not perfect balance, but it was almost perfect pre-PUF is because we had only just still had one set of elite specs, right? It was pretty easy to balance like between classes that would be better in power versus classes that would rely more on Condi. And I think we might not get that level of balance in the future, because I mean, now we're 2 specs in. Expansion would probably release a 3rd spec in. That's gonna be a lot to take in. I mean, that's three specs for the class, your core, and then like your +3, and it's gonna be hard to, like, I don't know, nerf something for like the Heart of Thorns spec of a class, but then the PUF spec or whatever EOD spec might be a little too overpowered, or they nerf maybe the base spec, just the base core class, and then maybe one other spec is kind of nerfed. So it's really like they can't really play too much, I guess, with the balance. Otherwise, like they might mess it up even more than it is.
So yeah, it's like 4x9 for like, well, this is where I think, like, fundamentally, like, just give me the keys, man. Honestly, it's all about keeping it simple. What I would honestly do when this happens, because it's inevitable that we're going to be, well, 3 specializations in, and then like 4 or 5 core trait lines, is honestly, the best thing I can do. The best way I would explain it is, look, you can only have 1 specialization. So I think the specialization should be the least focused trait line, because you can only have 1. And I think 2 out of the 3 are generally what makes a build strong or a class strong. In my opinion, ArenaNet needs to really put more effort into fixing all the core trait lines of every single class. Make those all really, really, good. Make them synergize with the specific character. So that way, as a warrior, for example, I don't always have to rely on discipline. I'm gridlocked to that 1 trait line in order to have any effect in a lot of the games because of the weapon swap. That's what gives warrior the edge or the adrenaline, right? So if you just take the core specializations, make those really, really good and really, really strong, you build a good foundation for every single character, every single profession. From there, the specializations, if 1 specialization's out of whack, whatever, you have 2 more to work with. You know what I mean? So I don't think that they're really doing that, at least not from my opinion or from what I can tell. And it makes it really hard to balance, because now they're really focusing on trying to balance every single trait line, when all they have to do, just don't worry about the specialization until you fix the core ones.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think I don't know if I would say, like, maybe sometimes they kind of try too hard, because like each specialization is like treated as its own core spec kind of thing, right? So I don't know if that's the problem, where they feel like every specialization should matter in every balance patch. And yes, I think maybe that's a nice way of going about it, but then that's also not realistic. But I agree, like, if they maybe at least fine-tune the core in its own, that could probably leave room where, to add on to what you're saying, is focus on the core. If the core spec is fine, then maybe the other 3 specs should be just things that complement the core class and not their own entire thing. Because right now, that's what the other specializations are. They're basically a different class of the warrior, or a different class of guardian or something, right? But if they just made the core as good as it is and fine-tune that, like you said, then the other 3 specializations just act as the bonus. They just act as a way to enhance your core class, but not necessarily become its own other class.
Yeah, it's like adding ketchup on fries,
Exactly. Like,
it's pretty much the same thing.
Instead of adding ketchup on fries right now, they're just adding like more fries on fries. So it's just, I mean, fries is good, but then, at some point there's something called a little too much fries. Not good for you.
Yeah. Or too much ketchup. Either way. But that's the whole point. Yeah, that's how I see it. I just don't see that going the way, because it's like Renegade, right? People say, look, Renegade is overpowered because of whatever the spirits are, and that is a possibility. But let's just say the other 2 trait lines are what makes Renegade really strong. The Renegade trait line by itself might not be as strong, or the Renegade spirits might not be as strong, if you didn't have Retribution giving you constant life force for using a specialization, things like that. So when they synergize well, it's great. Now, obviously, you want to make sure that every core specialization is tuned appropriately to where it's not overpowered. So I think those are 4 key elements that I would do in order to make just overall Conquest more, more, I guess, fun for everyday players.
Chicken Noodle, thank you so much for subscribing as well, by the way, being a tier 1 sub. Yeah, I think again, like, the balance in itself is its own form, but then, like you said, it goes back to also the maps. There's nothing right now that, as a map, they haven't really changed anything that's a game changer in PvP. All the maps are essentially the same, but each map just comes back with its own bonus. And I think maybe, like you said, that also ties in with things where, it's not just the balance of the game, it's also the maps themselves, and maybe, like you said, the revival time. It does not give room for different, like, plays to be made in a team, right? Like, if it's a very good team up against another very good team, and we've seen this, right, in ATs, we've seen this in other tournaments, you will have maybe 2 or 3 comebacks within a single game. Even though the 20 seconds is too short to do anything, a team that could be 100 points up can sometimes end up losing the game. They might end up like getting caught up to, and the team that was down 100 points sometimes could end up overtaking and then maintaining their game. And in some cases, we've even seen games where they were so close, even up to the 500 mark, they were just neck and neck. It's not like I would say like there isn't room for a comeback, but I would say the only way it works is if both teams are equally skilled right now. And I think your reasoning of like the comeback is not enough time because of the 20-second or 15-second revival is due to the fact that, well, you're not always going to have a top tier team against another top tier team. Sometimes you just have top tier players, but then the other half of your team is maybe average, and then you're up against another team that just has slightly much better players. That makes it difficult in those times to really make a comeback, especially maybe for a casual who maybe comes into the game and everything's too fast paced and maybe too overwhelming to them. So I think that's also where you're kind of come from, right? Like the fact that maybe the exception is top tier teams can make a comeback, but other players on the average, which is the majority of the player base, they don't have 20 seconds to make that thing happen, right?
Kind of like, I mean, there's a lot to like, get into there. The biggest thing that I was talking about with the respawn time was only on Stronghold. Like, I don't think it's a problem in Conquest. Kind of what you were saying though was like with the teams and everything. I think ultimately, if ArenaNet made the game more enjoyable, at least PvP, there's a few things that I would think of. Right, first is kind of just having like that tutorial island again, where you're kind of learning what the overall mechanics are. I don't think that there's a very good tutorial with PvP. It is very hard for a new player to come in and just learn, which is why I started my YouTube channel. I think that there is a lot of people that want to be better at PvP. Maybe they don't want to be pros or they don't want to be in these tournaments, but they do want to get better. I feel like it has the potential. I've had a lot of friends who are like, look, I'm just a PvEer, but I like to PvP occasionally. It's just very hard because there's not a tutorial or something that gives me good instruction on how to use my skills or, overall the fundamentals of the game. And so that's why, I think it discourages a lot of people. I've also heard people just don't want to step foot into it because they're discouraged and they're scared of PvP, which is fine. As well. But I think ultimately what is important is trying to get them into it, because what's right now, like you said, right, there's a lot of top tier players and top tier teams. There's nothing really in between. You're either going to have somebody, there's like a huge skill gap, which is why we end up getting those big snowballs. I don't think respawn timer, like you said, is going to have an effect on that. What I think is going to be important is trying to bring more of a population and bring back old players, because then we're going to have a healthier community. And so people who are at a average skill level or just a new novice player are going to fight new players more often. Yeah, it may be chaotic, right? It may be like two people with blindfolds swinging fists at each other trying to hit, but at least the games will be closer that way. You'll have two people swinging fists with blindfolds versus one, and one's an MMA fighter that fights professionally. And that's where I think, we don't have that in between. So if we can get that, if ArenaNet can also give quality of life where new players have a better experience, then I think ultimately we can get back up to that. I don't think that they need to focus on ESL or Pro League or esports. Personally, I think esports is in the North American region kind of a flattening industry anyways. So I think you want to engage in the players you already have.
Fair enough. Yeah. And I think, interestingly enough, I think that would be something to tie into the upcoming End of Dragons expansion. I think that would be a great suggestion, like you said, maybe having some sort of introductory like island or PvP simulation, right? Like you can have like an instance where you enter and you kind of do PvP with bots or something, at least train you or something, get you into the idea of what PvP is like and what you should expect. So that's something you would probably like want to get into for the expansion, right? Something that maybe they could offer up.
Well, the funny part is they had it, and I don't know why they decided to change the Heart of the Mist. When people first got into the game, there was a tutorial island for PvP. Like it was there. and they took it away, and then they changed Heart of the Mist. Heart of the Mist, in my opinion, now is way more confusing to get into as a new player. You get into it, you have all these different islands, these waypoints, you don't know where you're going. Like, it's just overwhelming at first, in my opinion, if I was new. Versus the old way where you log in, you get in, and everything's just right in front of you. You don't have to turn left or right. You see the trainers, you see the mobs, like no waypoints needed. You just walk through. It was easy. So I think they need to go backwards, in all honesty, if they want that community again.
I actually
Back when, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, I actually forgot that, like, yeah, the previous Heart of the Mist map did have like a training section. Yes, you're actually right. I kind of forgot about that. Yeah. But it wasn't like, I don't know, was it detailed? I can't remember how it was, but it wasn't that detailed. Wasn't it just like you just like go up to an NPC and fight them, and it was like just different like class NPCs that you fought? Wasn't it something like that, right?
Yeah, it was super easy. It was like those bots, right? So even the original Heart of the Mist, once you got out of there, you could go, you were in this area with the portal, and you just walk straight, and everything's kind of around you in a circle. So like if you wanted to go fight the professions, you just walk one direction. If you wanted to go to the trade post or whatever, you go to the next direction. And then if you wanted to go fight or do the dodge roll bot 3000, you go to straight. It was just, the layout was simple, which I think was better. You have, I see Ario saying it's very confusing. You don't know what much of it's for. It's cluttered with visual effects. I do like some of the aspects, like the tournament winners you see there at the beginning. That's cool, but they could have just put that right in the center of the old Heart of the Mists.
Yeah.
So I think fundamentally, there's just no tutorial, nothing, anything like that. And yeah, I mean, that's why I'm really trying to help, because like I said, I think there is a large player base that wants to, they want to play PvP, right? But here's the problem that I find. Your time is worth money, right? If I said, "Hey, give me an hour of your time for free," you'd be like, "No, bro, my time is worth $100, whatever. Like an hour of my time is worth $100, right?" Okay, well that's fine. That means that if you were to do anything, you would need that reward of $100. And with PvP, it's like I don't think it's a player that necessarily doesn't want to go into it. They just don't think it's worth their time because either the rewards aren't there, the fun isn't there, whatever the case may be. How do we make it worth their time, right? How do we make it so that you want to go in and you want to play, regardless of if you get paid or not? A reward, there has to be something that your time is worth to put in 15 minutes in a game, or even like 3 hours straight of a game, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Before Cashmar actually said something interesting. This is something that was in Guild Wars 1. But before I get into what Cash just said in chat, I want to just show people, and I just pulled this up like right now. It's actually on Iron Maiden's channel. What basically what you were talking about, like the old Heart of the Mists PvP combat practice area. So I'm just gonna put this up on the display capture right here for people to see. And I think there it is. So here, as people could see, this is the map that Keyba was talking about, where everything was just kind of like in its own section. It was just very easy to get to. I think I actually need to do one more thing. Right here. There we go. There we go.
Yeah, I was like,
okay. Let me just see, because like we're on delay, so let me just see if it pulls up.
I'm sorry, Ari. I have to make sure that I'm. It's easier to drink and it's cheaper to buy a gallon.
Yeah. And so this is what we were talking about, right? The Hall of Memories. This pretty much is like where PvP used to be. I think before 2017 or something. And this is the combat practice that he's talking about, right? This area right here, combat practice. And yeah, you could just go there, and I think this is what you're talking about, the introduction to more or less the classes of PvP, I would assume.
Yeah, like look, it's right in front of you. You don't have to go out of your way to find it. Sparring partner.
I think there was a section for classes. I don't know if he shows it in this video itself. And then there's Siege Master. I think they also had World vs. World included in this at the time.
Yeah, your Siege Master, but then also because the Trebuchet and Kylo, Battle of Kylo map.
Yeah, this was the old one. So it's not shown in this map, but there was a section where you can fight off the actual class specs. Like there was like NPCs around each other, and like you just if you entered the like a small section where the NPCs in, like they'll start attacking you, and then you'll have to like defend yourself. So there was one for Necromancer, Ranger, Thief, and whatever. So they're all like next to each other, and they all have like a small space for themselves. And if you entered their small space, they attacked you, and then you defended yourself. So that's the one that Keyba was saying. I guess they kind of had that in the new map, did they not? But I get what you mean. It's very confusing. The new map is really a cluster, and if you actually don't have Heart of Thorns, which requires gliding, you actually can't reach up to some places in that map without Heart of Thorns, right?
Yeah, it's very forgotten of new player experience, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think new players in is always good. I've never been a believer it's like a leaky bucket. It's inevitable. Some people are going to move on. I think it's what whenever traditionally in any industry, I think I read some statistic that was like 80% or so of the people fall off within the first like year or something, whatever, new game, whatnot. And I mean that's going to happen. Like you could make the best game in the world, but some people just either stop playing games altogether. So you want to bring new people in. You want to keep them engaged. It's just way too difficult the way it's laid out right now. In order for somebody to get in, and like you said, without the expansion, they can't really glide. I don't know if waypoints are all unlocked or not, but it's too much. Way too much.
Yes,
I think they forgot about new players.
Yeah. So Cash actually mentioned a good point. She said, would like to see more of the casual PvE/PvP from factions return. Alliance battles, JQ, FA, they were a good taste of PvP. And to give some context on what that is, so basically Ingel Wars 1, of course there was this thing called alliances, and basically there was two factions you can choose from, right? Luxon or Kurzik. And that's like basically the same thing as like choosing Horde or Alliance in World of Warcraft. It's, which faction you're loyal to. And you of course get points for that, like, representing your faction in different game modes. So one thing was there was a thing called Alliance battles, which is all these game modes I'm going to mention are pretty much PvP. They're player versus player. So Alliance battles was basically you team up with with 3 people. So like you're a party of 4 people, and when you enter the map, when you like queue up, and then when you enter a game, you're basically randomly paired with 3 other teams. So you're a total of 12 players, right, in one game, versus 12 players of the opposing faction. You do not see the health or the bar of any of the other 3 teams you're paired with. You just see the party that you're with, right? The 3 players that you're with. So it's just 3 teams, 4 players each, and that's 12 people, right? So they had that, and basically the alliance battle system was you go around the map, you capture points like nodes basically, and you earn points from those nodes. There's I think also some maps had like a special ability. So it's pretty much like what PvP is today, except like 12v12. Some maps had, like, for example, in alliance battles, I think a dragon, like you could summon a dragon to help you. Some other maps like were mainly favored towards one faction, and the other faction had a disadvantage, things like that. And that was that. And then there was 2 other game modes, Jade Quarry and Fort Aspenwood. Jade Quarry was another node system, except this was an 8v8 map, and pretty much 8 on the Luxon side, 8 on the Kurzik side. This map was themed towards the Luxon side, hence the name Jade Quarry. And it had 3 capture points, and those 3 capture points basically were nodes as well, except they don't give you points from the nodes. You basically have to capture them so that your escort, like, they had like escorts there, like you had your turtle that you have to escort to the node, and then they pick up a jade, and then they have to transfer it back to your camp, and then that's how you get a point. And likewise, the other faction has the same, and you can even kill the other faction's escort to prevent them from actually capturing the jade from the node. That was another game mode. And then Fort Aspenwood was another game mode, which was basically the Kurziks were defending a fort and the Luxons were attacking the fort. So you basically, one team was kind of like attacking like a keep, and then there was a defending team for the keep. So those were 3 game modes, and they are PvP, but a lot of casuals actually enjoyed it. Like, there weren't a lot of people who complained about like balance, right? Because those game modes were just fun. It wasn't anything to affect your own personal ranking system or your PvP rank. Those games were just PvP game modes that were just extra on top of whatever PvP we had in Guild Wars 1. And you had a lot of casuals who loved those because you didn't necessarily, like, there were of course builds that made these game modes effective, but casuals didn't feel like pressured to, you know, do something that they didn't like or anything. Like, it just felt like, you know, I can go into this game mode with whatever build, I can play, I can get a taste of what PvP is like, and if I like PvP, I'll get serious about it and commit to actual PvP. I'm wondering if they can actually introduce something like that in Guild Wars 2. And I think we've talked about this before. You know, we mentioned these features. You and I have talked about this before. Would you think something like this could appeal to the casuals in Guild Wars 2? Because it's obviously not the same audience. Game modes are kind of like that, introductory.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I would. The fact, I don't want to just make it, point. The casuals could seem derogatory, but I just think in general, like, the way to reference it is like just people who aren't playing 3, 4, 5 hours a day every day constantly. Like somebody who logs in once every day or once every few days, or just a weekend warrior, effectively. I think that ideally, yeah, like I would like to see more. A couple of things. I think Conquest is fine. Like I said, I don't want any changes to Conquest. I don't even want anything remotely in the same realm of Conquest in a 5v5 game mode to be out. I think Conquest is the ultimate 5 versus 5. So anything they try to do, well, let's just do a 5v5 Stronghold version 2.0. It's a waste of time, in my opinion. I think what they need to focus on is, like you said, like alliance battles, real GVGs, 15v15, something with a little bit more larger scale that will bring back a lot of with the PvP balance, because I know for a fact that will bring back a lot of players. And then from there, you could possibly have people who do crossovers, where more of those 15v15 players go into the 5v5 realm, which increases the overall population. That, I think, is important. I've been in a GVG guild, and I find GVGs are really, really fun. I don't think that restricting it specifically because of balance issues. I think obviously the players are smart enough that they're going to come out with their own metas. So yeah, ideally I would like to see something like that. I don't know what else. We have 2v2s and 3v3s. Obviously, I think Sonic Dad had mentioned it, that, to my earlier point, you just get a lot of AoE spam from, Guardians, Necros, and Warriors or whatever. So it's not as fun because it's using the same fighting style in a smaller map. So it's just like, this spam all over the place, all over, once again. Once again, it would be fun. But I don't think that, coming out with 5v5 game modes is the solve it problem again. I think World v World is the way I would categorize it. World versus World would be for large scale open fights. 15v15s would be more of a traditional structured GVG with PvP balance. And then you could have the 5v5s with Conquest and the 2v2s and the 1v1 arenas.
Yeah, fair enough. And like Big Monster here says, yes, the more people you have, the more casual can like it, because it's not all about them. Having a 4v5 is really bad, but not as bad as a 11v12. And I think, yeah, that's tying into what you're saying is, if you can just offer game modes that are slightly more scaled in numbers. And this is actually a perfect segue to get into the next topic of World vs. World, right? I know a lot of people sometimes, even other players who usually don't do anything related to PvP, can sometimes they can find PvP itself overwhelming, but I've seen from the past that more people are willing to get into World vs. World simply because there is that option of, well, I can just go be part of a Zerg of 50 people, you know. If you're not very good at the game in terms of like at least the game mode that you're playing, if you're not good at World vs. World, it can be masked with like the other 49 people or the other, let's say, 30 people that are really putting in the effort, right? Because really World vs. World blobs is like that, right? Out of the 50 people, there's probably on average maybe 20 to 25 that are very good, you know, WW players, and then the other 25 are usually the ones that I don't want to say get carried, but the ones who are like maybe inexperienced, who are still learning the ropes or having the benefit of course, learning from the Zerg itself. Um, of course, here's the thing though, WW right now as it is, there hasn't been much change to push anyone in it, and I think that's one of the questions to you is, you know, you've seen it, right? There's not been an effort in anyone wanting to go into WW because the reward maybe is not appealing. And do you think if there's something to change in World vs. World, is there something besides rewards to change to get someone in? Or do you think it maybe might be coming down to enough rewards to get someone hooked into WW?
I think this is kind of a weird one for me, right? Rewards are very subjective, so maybe somebody might consider it's just like, you know, I could be content with the rewards as it is because, and that's worth my time. But are those rewards worth everyone else's time? So it's like, and what rewards are they asking for? What if some people want gold rewards, and what if some people want, I don't know, like precursor rewards? Like how do you find the middle ground for that? So rewards is kind of weird for me. I mean, there's so many type of rewards out there. I don't know. I just think that there is, like, it goes back to the whole time thing. In my opinion, is it worth my time? How I would handle World versus World is I would definitely do some sort of progression. I don't know if I would buff the rewards, but I would make them more meaningful. Like, and what I mean is I wouldn't buff the amount of rewards you get, like quality or quantity rewards, right? Because right now, if you get pips, you get reward tracks, right? You get bags for kills. I don't know. You get experience. You get reward ranks for ranking up. So you get a lot of rewards. Sometimes they may not be that good of quality. So people may overlook, you know, what they're actually getting because, you know, may be worthless. So maybe increasing the quality of rewards versus the quantity might be a way of going about bringing people back into World versus World. I would honestly as well downscale the maps. I think they're a little bit, which the mounts kind of made it okay. That countered my point. We have mounts. Like, why would you? Well, you know, I think they're really big, and I think it's very difficult when I was in World versus World to find the same amount of players anymore. We could be running around for like 2, 3, you know, 20, 30 minutes before finding a fight because the maps are so big and we're just running. It's like running marathons. So maybe making them smaller, also making it more engaging for fights. Right now, I feel like, okay, you get 1 point for your realm or whatever. I think when they used to have those PvP or World versus World tournaments, that was pretty awesome. I think maybe going back onto those, giving unique finishers, something like that, right? Where you get a unique Doliac finisher that you can show off, or Doliac trophy, or even an emote or something like a gizmo for World versus World might be something that they could kind of consider to bringing more players back in. So there's a lot that goes into it. I think World versus World as it stands right now it's fun, but I don't know. I think people have too many ideas of what they want World versus World to be. You know, I think you know, XSplat, it's not about fights, it's about defending and taking land. That may be true, but if the players don't see it that way, then I mean, you have this conflict where it's not what they want it to be, so therefore they're not going to play it.
There's also
If
the
that
fact,
makes
I mean,
sense.
to add on to that, I mean, while, yeah, fundamentally what it comes down to is, yes, you are basically defending and taking land, and that's what the concept is. You can't do that without a fight. I mean, that's essentially, you know, at that point, it really isn't interesting. Go ask any World vs. World guild, even the ones that are known to just be the ones that focus on, you know, taking land or taking keeps, you know, PPT basically, right? So the guilds that focus on PPT, even they'll tell you they'll get bored if like they go around taking like 4 or 5 hours or something in camps and like they don't find anything interesting after that. There's only so much times, there's only so much you can take land without, you know, it just becoming a repetitive thing. And at that point, it just becomes a karma train, and that's not even worth it. That's not even worth your time, like worth your time. Like K trains don't even make you that much money, at least as they do today. They don't make you as much as they used to before. So yeah, I mean, yes, fights basically comes from that, but ultimately fights also does add a key role to World vs. World. I think you're forgetting that fight in itself is also a huge aspect. It's not just about fighting and taking land. It's not just about taking land. It's also the fights that come with it. Those need to be there.
You know, I mean, and it could be something that is simply solved by adding that 15v15, where fight guilds can go fight where they want. You know what I mean? And then World versus World guilds that really want to focus on that whole dynamic of protecting siege and things like that. I'm just saying, for me personally, it doesn't appeal to me right now as it is. I mean, and I don't want to speak for everybody, because I know there's some people that do like that kind of tactical game mode. What I would possibly do to make it more attractive to players who don't necessarily like it as it is maybe have it to where, and this is just like outlandish, but what if, right, Guild MM, I captured a tower, right? Let's just say I captured a tower, I claimed it for my guild, right? Now that tower generates profits for my guild, right? It's like 10 gold an hour, right? So my guild gets 10 gold an hour every time as long as we keep that and we defend it and claim it. Well, that's going to make me want to do that more, right? I'm going to want to protect that. Now there's going to be another team that comes in. They're going to be like, no, hell no, we want that 10 gold an hour. We're going to take that. And every time you scale up to like a tier 2 and tier 3, right, it goes to 10 gold an hour, and then it goes to 20 gold an hour, and then it's 30 gold an hour, right? You know what I mean? So like, okay, now we're going to get some crazy fights for these freaking towers or these camps or these sieges, because guilds are going to really want them because they're profitable. That's something that I would think.
Now you're
obviously
talking.
That's like outlandish, but I'm just giving out ideas. I think it's important to brainstorm because, you know, right, Sony, it may not be gold, right? It sounds like something ANET won't do. Well, you're right. Probably 100 times out of 10, they don't want to do that. But what I'm trying to say is, let's have a conversation where, hey, what if we added rewards to guilds that, for as long as they keep this tower under their control or their name, then they'll be able to get some sort of benefit like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think again, like I know a lot of people have basically mentioned, if you ask anyone in the WW community now, and they would tell you like having a better reward system in World vs. World would go a long way. In fact, even more so than what, like, no, I don't think anyone, at least I can only speak from what I've seen in this Discord. So there's this Discord, like it's like a leaders World vs. World Discord. And they have a few ANET devs there. Like any World vs. World guild is welcome to join. You basically can join as a representative, and like the leader of the guild can join, or, you know, basically 2 representatives per guild. And, you know, most of the time the discussion does lean towards, well, like, you know, if the rewards were just better, it would really incentivize more people to join the game, because it goes also back to what you're saying. The maps are maybe too big. I honestly, for you think the maps are big. I actually don't feel like the maps are big enough. But when I was playing World vs. World, and you were also during the prime times. If you remember, World vs. World in its prime, people would complain the maps are maybe like Alpine Borderlands was maybe slightly too small, and the original desert map was big. The one that released originally with the Heart of Thorns, that one was huge, and then they had to cut that down in size. But I think if the rewards were there, it would go a long way. I think if the rewards were there, it would also incentivize, like you said, other people to come into the game mode, because then there's a reason to stay. Right now, there is no reason to kind of be in World vs. World for a player who does not jump into WW, right? PvE players don't see the reason to be there. PvP players will probably jump in just because it is related to PvP. in itself, right? It's still a competitive gameplay, but I do feel like it does fundamentally come also down to the whole reward system.
Yeah, honestly, I think I could just pin it down to this. Look, they got to stop giving away AFK rewards. They can't just give me a reward for being in the game mode. I think that's dumb. Like I think it's okay. I think it's fine, but everything so far seems like it's that direction. You know, pips. You have AFK pip farmers effectively. You know, yeah, you have to have participation, but I mean, there's ways around that, loopholes. So it just feels like I could be a part of a Zerg, right? I could be in the back line. I could press one, and I get rewards. It doesn't seem rewarding to me, which is why I think the idea of having engaging rewards, which is why I came up with that whole tower, 10 gold an hour for keeping it, might be what that reward system looks like when you have actual quality rewards in the game mode that bring people in. It doesn't have to be gold. I just use gold because I think every Guild Wars 2 player can say they love having more gold in their wallet.
Yeah.
Or gems or whatever.
It's also a good example, like easily relatable. There's also the fact that, I mean, like you mentioned also previously, they did do seasons. If anyone remembers, there were 3 seasons of World vs. World tournaments that we had. And I think that was peak WW before HOT, right? That was the peak of World vs. World. And it was fun to have those seasons because you had something like server pride, but then I think the rewards were not bad at that time. The rewards were not bad, and then it was also ultimately down to the server's rankings. And so yeah, I really think if they can incorporate something like seasons plus a better reward system, like the pip system right now it's not that it's not bad, it's just that it's also still not worth your time. I think the gold per hour you make in World vs. World is just 10 gold, maybe barely even 10 gold, and the money in the World vs. World doesn't even come from the actual materials you get. It gets from the spirit shards you earn, right? Because you're leveling up almost every time in WW, the tomes of knowledge that you receive. And it's funny enough that that's basically where you make your money from. But again, then you also have the fact that a lot of people in WW don't even know about that. Like I've met people who have like 20,000, 30,000 spirit shards, and they've told me like they never knew what to do with it. And I'm just like, you can literally, simplest thing is convert your T5 to T6 and then just go sell it on the trading post. That's gonna get you, that's gonna basically like be your gold per hour from World vs. World if you think of it. But
it just requires too much effort, in my opinion. I guess like you have to really think outside the box in order to do. It's like the same thing with doing map completions to sell the gifts. Like it's something that the community kind of came together to build a market around. Like I think to address what Goku was asking, I think they removed seasons because I think it was creating some sort of like unhealthy level of gameplay, or it was something controversial like that where players just felt that there was too much time invested or something. Is that something? I don't remember, MF. Is that right? Like
I don't know why they removed seasons, but I do remember a lot of forum complaints in the season. So when seasons came out, so season 1 of World vs. World, I believe, and this is like, I'll just tell you like who won each season, right? So season 1, I believe Blackgate won season 1, Jade Quarry won season 2, and then the third season, I think Blackgate won the third season. The complaints people had about seasons was that like there was just too much like there's a lot of like basically matchup manipulation, and it was just easily done because of server transfers. So in season 1, something that happened was Blackgate had supposedly paid the third server in the tier to focus Jade Quarry, and they lost that season. So then what did Jade Quarry do in season 2? They paid that same server to focus Blackgate in season 2, and then Jade Quarry won that season. And then season 3,
I didn't know
that. Season 3 came around, and then that same server went and asked both servers who's going to pay them more to focus who. And I think Jade Quarry just said they weren't going to pay them as much as the other server. They don't care. And then that's what happened. And then Blackgate won the third season because of that. And then Jade Quarry, people complained that like, oh, it's map manipulation, but we did it in season 2. Blackgate did it in season 1, and then season 3. The only reason why they didn't do it was because I guess 8 Corey leaders didn't want to pay. And the weird thing about that is also the third server in that tier 1 matchup, because the tier 1 matchup was the one that determined who would win the season. And then, you know, each server would win it in its tier, but ultimately, of course, tier 1 is the one that matters. And that third server was known as like the had like the lapdog or something of the other two servers. That's what it was. Like the third server was basically the other two servers' lapdog. And
Yeah, I think it was like Kashmar said. That's what I was kind of remembering, was that it was burning out commanders too. Like people actually stopped playing the game because they were so burnt out from these seasons. Um, yeah, that was what I think I remember, was population got killed because of it too. It's a good idea, but I also feel like, you know, execution could be definitely better with world versus world specifically. I think it's got a lot of potential. Like, in all honesty, there could be many seasons or mini fights, or I don't know, double reward windows, things like that are unpredictable, that make people like, okay, like, you know what FOMO is? I've recently learned about this term,
FOMO.
or like in depth, and it's like the fear of missing out, right? If you randomize certain events in World versus World, people are going to want to play it more because they're afraid that they're going to miss out on it, I guess. Like a random double XP or double rewards, or increase 1,000% magic find for like 2 minutes windows or something. I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas, but
Yeah. I
and
think also
realistically, like,
it's also like, yeah, I mean, the hard thing about World vs. World is it's basically 24/7.
yeah,
And it's like that for the entire week. So like, yeah, again, when it goes back to competitive gameplay, um, the thing with the seasons, yeah, it burns you out. And Aizen, what the hell?
FOMO.
Yeah, no. It starts with an F, yeah, not an H. I don't think I can even say that on stream. Um, so yeah, like it's 24/7. So like you have to have 24/7 coverage all week. Like, and anyone who's been in World vs. World knows that 24/7 coverage is not possible. Like at best, you can have maybe 3 time zones that you can control. Like, you know, like your best 3 time zones. But there's always going to be like 1 or 2 missing time zones that you just simply will not be able to fill. And it's just too difficult to rely on a single commander in every time zone. You need like, you know, if you have your NA Prime, for example, NA needs like 3-4 commanders. Then you need your OCX, which is like usually late NA, right? Like your 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. EST. That's basically your OCX, Oceanic time zone. You need another 2 commanders for that. And that's one of the difficult things to do, is that it's hard to find that many commanders in that time zone. Same with your Southeast Asia time zone, which is usually typically around like, you know, 5 6 a.m. in the morning to around 10 a.m. in the or 10 a.m. in the morning as well, like in EST, right, in American time. So it's just not possible. And I don't know if they should change maybe the way the matchups are played, like in terms of like reducing the actual length of the matchup, or um what would you think? Like, is there anything that they could do to make that experience better? Otherwise, people are just burning out every week.
honestly, I think I don't think they could do anything to make it better. I feel like they would do more harm than good if they try to like restrict time zones, or even put any sort of like restriction on time, because, you know, it's too many players. That, you know, another thing to think about too is we all have different play times, so you could miss a window just be being unlucky. I think World versus World is great for its sandboxiness, but maybe if they incorporated something where it's more structured on the side, or like we said, I mean, it just depends. It's very hard to do that. I honestly don't have a solution, or I don't think anything that I could kind of give insight into would be helpful. So
Yeah.
probably not.
I also think though, like the game mode in itself doesn't need changes. It's really like I know a lot of people have mentioned like, oh, like you need to add this to the gameplay or this, and I honestly think and I'm sure there's a lot of other people have I've seen agree with this. the game mode itself doesn't actually need to be changed. It's just the appeal to bring people to that game mode. You know what I mean? Like which comes down to rewards and maybe offering some other solutions for some other things like Splat said, like, you know, fights. Maybe like a lot of people just, it's not appeal to them. They want to just like go and capture keeps and towers, and of course that triggers a fight at some point. But some people actually just don't even care about that. So maybe, like you said, Kiba, offering a GVG system, or the long-awaited GVG system that we've been waiting for since, you know, the eternity of the game's release, right? So that would probably have another incentive for more players to get in competitively, at least from PvP. That would draw the PvP audience. That might even draw like people who would want to like be a part of like, you know, their own personal guild at PvPs and stuff like or GVGs. So in terms of adding to the game mode, I think maybe adding GVGs as an option, a separate map or a separate instance, that would go a long way. But the game mode itself, World vs. World, is actually as good as it is. I think it's still one of the it's still one of the better, well done, like, you know, server versus server modes that like other MMOs have also tried to implement. But I think you know, Guild Wars 2 actually manages to do it very well.
Yeah, no, and yeah, I agree. We got to refine it. We got to make it more enjoyable for people to, one, retain players, but also bring new players in. I honestly think the World v World community is, for the most part, I think you can really build a nice group of friends. You can have like a 10, 20 man group and, you know, build good friendships. Like, I haven't found something like that in PvP. Everyone just kind of is very cannibalistic in a way. Whatever, I have good PvP friends, but I tend to stay away from the overall like huge community. And so, I mean, fuck, dude, I don't really know what I could. If it was me, right, there'd be a lot of overhauls, but some of them might not be good, but they'd be different. You know, I would make it a point, an emphasis, and try to make it very nice for people to have like a pride with playing with the group or wanting to be a part of a group or community. I've played a few other games where it's like, if you're part of this guild, you know what I mean? Like, the intrinsic value of being in that guild is huge. So you work towards it, you work hard, and once you get into it, you're happy there with the people because they may take things seriously or whatever. But there's not in a game called Guild Wars 2, right? It's so funny.
Yeah, it's
one, yeah, you guild
sorry,
slots, and two, there's no guild pride. There's like, what makes it you know, beneficial, or what value do I have being a part of a guild? There's not really anything, you know what I mean? So
yeah, and it was also actually I feel like something that's kind of missed. Like, I know a lot of people who hang out with discords and their own PvE guilds, and, you know, like those large guilds, right? Or even like your small family-sized guild that's like only 100 people or something. But believe me, it's a very different experience having a WW guild that you're a part of, and like a guild that rallies like 3 or 4 nights a week. You're in there with like 15 other people, sometimes 20 other people, depending on the size of the guild, or, you know, and that's there for 2 hours, and that's done 3-4 times a week. Some guilds even do that every day. It's a very close-knit group. Like, WW guilds, I feel like people sometimes like don't talk about that, like the benefit of having that guild that wants to strive to be better. Like, it's a very different atmosphere. I would say if anyone has never been a part of the World vs. World guild, believe me, it's not the same as being in a PvE guild. A World vs. World guild, yes, you have like a training night, have rally nights, which is basically where you go out, fight, or take keeps to get fights or things like that. Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. Like, there's a lot of fun, but then also at the same time, I know people think it's maybe too overwhelming, or maybe it's too elitist, but believe me, WW guilds don't, like, unless like you're joining a guild that has that level that they want you to be in, right? That's a different guild. That's just a guild that wants just better experienced players for themselves, which they have a right to ask for that, right? You don't have to join. But a lot of WW guilds aren't like that. A lot of WW guilds will like offer to even train you. And if they even have money to fund your ascended gear, they will try to set up like some ascended fund to set up your own ascended gear so that you can adapt to build changes. Like Keyba, you've been basically part of a WW guild and you've led your own, so you can talk from experience as well.
I would say the biggest thing is, like you said, 2 hours, two times, 3 times a week, 2 hours, you really become close with these people. And it becomes a matter of like, from my experience, I've been more excited about playing with them versus the actual game mode itself. Obviously, there comes a point where I'm like, I'm just too bored of the game mode. I'm sorry, guys, I like you all, but I can't do it anymore. But I mean, like, you know what I mean? There is that element that isn't talked about, like you said, that the community itself is nice to be a part of. Like you said, they fund your stuff. I mean, I've been funded multiple server transfers before I got like that cheat code of getting free transfers and stuff over and over again. And there's nothing really like it. You can't do that in PvP. Everyone flakes on you. I've had like 17 different teams in PvP, but I've only been a part of like 2 tight-knit GvG World v World guilds.
It needs rotating maps would make it fresh. So right now we can't really do too much with rotating maps, just simply because like, well, we have Alpine, we have EBG, and we have a Desert Borderlands, right? So we would probably need one more map if you want to have the full rotation between servers. And I think that will just come down to if they want to release a Canton themed map in End of Dragons expansion for World vs. World, because we have not seen one released for Path of Fire. And I think also they might not want to, just simply because when they did release the what was it? When they did release the Desert Borderlands, it did not have a good reaction. It had like a good like excitement and hype before it, like when it was released, like in the trailer. But when the map actually went live and people started playing the map, it didn't really have good feedback because people complained. Partly because the map was probably just too big to play in, and it was actually difficult to even find people. And I don't know if that's one of the reasons. The negative reaction people had after the release is what might push them not to want to even consider another map, even if it makes sense actually for End of Dragons to release something for WvW, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they would. I mean, I would, like I said, I think it's more harm than good sometimes. It may not just be the map. I mean, yeah, it would be refreshing to see like different. What they could do is they could just do overlays on the map, like, for something like Winter's Day, they just add snow everywhere on the entire map, like they do in Divinity's Reach. Maybe it's refreshing to do that. That's what I would say would be kind of a cool way of spicing it up. But in terms of making more maps, I don't know. I just, realistically, the way I look at it, the dev team already has problems kind of doing the simple things as it is. So I think that's kind of like just, they would end up messing it up with the way that things are going. So
Would not work, huh?
what would be cool though would be let's just do this, right? Let's just do a BR World v World mode where you get a team of 5 queued up. And once enough teams are queued up, you go into the map like an Alpine, and you all spawn in different areas. And then from there, there's like that PvP 2v2 poison gas cloud that like comes in and starts moving in. So that way, like the perimeter of the map gets smaller and smaller. And then once you die, you're out, right? It's like a battle royale. So the one team that ends up winning it all gets the victory royale, and they get like, I don't know, tokens.
This is actually a suggestion that we talked about. If Ain't was ever considering to capture like an audience outside of Guild Wars 2, is to do a battle royale on like one of the World vs. World maps, right? And the question really at that point would be, is just how do you like make the map work, right? Do people spawn with a weapon? Do they just spawn and then they have to find weapons related to their class, like fine or masterwork or rare or exotic or ascended or legendary type gear lying around the map or something? But I at least for myself, I would say like there is some appeal to doing a battle royale mode for Guild Wars 2, wouldn't you think?
I just think once again, yeah, it would be cool, but let's try to get the simple things fixed. I just threw that out there because I thought it would be something interesting. I mean, hey, in my dreams, I could dream about something like that. That would be cool.
It's funny enough because with Fortnite's original game mode was supposed to be that story game mode that we're working on, and they just released a battle royale just to see, just to have something quickly thrown out there. And funny enough, the battle royale actually got so popular that the main team ended up having to work on that instead, and the smaller teams started working on the story instead. Even though their battle royale mode was like in beta for an entire year. That's literally the reason Fortnite was put up on the map, right? So not to say that that's the same success that could happen to Guild Wars 2, but I do think like there could be an appeal to having that battle. I mean, Alpine Borderlands would make a great battle royale map. Let's be honest, it'd be a cool map to fight in.
Yeah, it would. Hey man, give me like a minute or so. I'll be right back. You could do a plug or something, but yeah, I'll be right back.
Oh, a plug. Okay, no problem. Okay, guys. While he's gone, you could actually see. Look at that in the background. I don't know if you guys could see it, but you can see his dog, Chloe. Chloe, she's like wagging her tail. But I don't know where now she's stretching. Anyway, okay, I got distracted by his actual dog. Okay, guys, Q&A. End of Dragons Q&A that will be going on. I'll be answering the questions this Wednesday. If you'd like to submit a question or a feature or a suggestion that you think should be put in the End of Dragons expansion, exclamation point QA, go to that link, click on that. Yeah, just put in your question, what you'd like to see in End of Dragons, or a question you'd like me to answer related to End of Dragons. And yeah, the video comes out this Wednesday. I'm going to actually film the footage to answer those questions tomorrow. So today would kind of be the last day to get in on it, because I want to film the footage on Monday and then have it ready to upload on Wednesday. And of course, I am picking one random comment to win 100 gold, and they'll receive their gold before Wednesday as well. So make sure with your question or your suggestion to also include your account ID in the comment section.
All that water got to me, dude.
Oh, welcome back.
I gotta stop drinking
Yeah, you've been drinking a lot of water, aren't you?
water. Yeah, dude, my voice gets like real dry, and then it starts like cracking a little bit. So I have to drink a lot of water because I know I talk a lot and I talk quick.
Yeah. I have the same thing. The problem is I don't drink water, so it's like what you're doing is actually healthy. So to get back into the discussion, we've talked about basically, you know, so we've also, just to cover the topics that we've talked about, right? We've covered the topics of what got you into content creation, what got you into Guild Wars 2 itself, the game itself that we hear and we enjoy, and you know, the PvP, particularly the balance and things that we'd like to see improved upon that could possibly come out in the expansion. And then we of course entered this entire debate about what's it called? WvW. Oh, dog time. Is that a dog cam?
No, I mean, I want to make sure everyone sees that she's not a cat.
Oh wait, someone said she's a cat.
But yeah,
It's a cat. Oh, well,
I don't know.
that's what Kappa.
But yeah, so yeah, we've been through a lot.
Yeah. And so before we
What
wrap
else?
up, we still have one more topic that is, and we kind of have mentioned this for WW, but I guess we didn't really officially dive into it. But what would you like to see for World vs. World that could be implemented in End of Dragons? Of course, this could be things realistic that you think can be implemented, or something that you hope could be in the expansion.
For World versus World, End of Dragons, alliances. Let's be honest. It's been like what 4 years since they've talked about that. I would hope realistically that gets implemented in End of Dragons. Ideally, maybe something like I said. Everything that we've kind of talked about, I think we've kind of just like wrung it dry. What I would like to see, I would like to see more quality rewards as well. And something that's centered around giving your guild specific rewards, right? Because I truly believe that if especially in world versus world, where there's a lot more opportunity. If one guild can only control one object or whatever, and that there's a unlimited amount of guild slots, well, effectively 500, that if that guild on that server can take something or take a couple things, then they get some sort of guild reward. That's not specifically exclusive to them, that everyone can effectively get, like gold, but they just get a little bit more of it or something. I would like to see more of that, because then I think that would instill maybe some guild pride, some bragging rights, things like that. That's pretty much what I would like to see. The things that I would also like to avoid on the other end of that is a lot of power creep. I would hate for classes to get more and more passive and AoE abilities that would just allow somebody to walk forward and kill an entire Zerg, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that happens in today's metas too. So one thing about to go over with Blanky, very little incentive to push your guild forward. So one thing that I actually talked about with, I think, Mukluk on the first episode was if they could somehow incorporate the feature that they had in Guild Wars 1, which was if you have some point system or some ranking system to determine if guilds can control or alliances can control cities or outposts, and if those cities or outposts offered incentives for you to capture them. The thing is, I don't know how they could implement it, because it's also the whole alliance thing right now. It appeals to the WvW audience, but I don't really see a reason for PvE right now to at least have a alliance, unless they just wanted all the people in their server to be in this together, and then they can make an alliance. So do you think there might be some sort of way to maybe have something done for PvE guilds? Because right now alliances has been mainly a WW discussion.
Yeah, I think alliances just would be good for World v World. I think what would be good for PvP would be to be able to have a team registry in the game. And then you can select your team. The reason why is, I know what the guilds do it, but I used to play Final Fantasy 14. They have a very, very small PvP community. I mean, this is tiny. Like, I could wait 3 hours for a queue. But when they did have tournaments and things of that nature, you could only play with the team that you signed up with. You couldn't play with any other team, no matter what. It's like an indefinite team registry. So you could kick people out and you could put people in. But what that forced us to do is, I couldn't just go randomly pick up a pug to queue with in a tournament, things like that, right? So I think that would be a good way of doing it in the PvP realm, while keeping alliances separate into world versus world, is having that registry for, so like I pay, I don't know, 10 silver, I create a team name, get an icon, it's somewhat like a guild, but it's only exclusive to PvP. I put in and I give an invite to 4 or 5 of my friends, right? 5 being because we want to have one alternate in case somebody can't make it. And then from there, that team progresses, right? So we hit individual, like personal rewards that is implemented in the game. So we unlock different, we could unlock different emblems or different icons or guild rewards specifically for our team that makes us want to stay together. If the team breaks up, then we have to reset from 0 again. So I think that would be a great way of doing it in the PvP world. Now, obviously, that's not in Guild Wars 2. That's something we would like to see on Ender Dragons, though.
Yeah. Blanky responded with one place that would have stuff like that is Black Desert, I think, where you could control nodes and something like that. If Guild Wars 2 could put some similar system in place, like resource nodes or bonus XP, special events. So yeah, in Black Desert, a guild can take over basically like a town, right? And like the way to do that is basically you GVG the existing guild that controls that town, and if you beat them, your guild owns the town. But then you also own the nodes that come with that town. Now I don't know if that would be smart to do in Guild Wars 2, just because like at least in Black Desert, those towns also you can control. I think about a percentage of the tax in that town goes to that guild, and I could really see that being abused in Guild Wars 2, because yeah, it would be very abused, and I don't think that would be a good idea to implement that just for the sake of the economy and in tilting the power into a specific group of individuals who could just very easily control that entire time. But I do think having some benefit, maybe to do with like you said, like you unlock something that can be good for you and your guild, like something that kind of brings you together, like you said, personal emblems or personal gear that you can only unlock as like gear that you can only win if you had participated like in a guild related activity, like you said, maybe it could be GVG, PvP, or World vs World. But yeah, I think it would have to be something like that, like you said, Keyba. I think more in line with what you said, that reward system would definitely go a long way for the game, and getting the interest of people wanting to maybe be a part of a guild in the long term and not maybe switching too much. Other thing I had actually in mind is that would you like to see because I know they mentioned this a while ago, and that's the question that I have, is that a while ago they had something about like a GVG, or not a GVG, but like a 15v15, or was it a 12v12 PvP system in place that apparently they've been testing for 2 years.
Yeah, I think
What
that's kind of just, yeah.
it's just scrapped up probably, and we just don't know about it.
It's not scrapped up. My understanding is it's a side project that whenever they have free time, they're working on it. It's not something that is looking to be implemented. It's like kind of like a we'll get to it when we get to it. But it's definitely on the roadmap of things. If something takes precedence like a balance or living story, they're just going to keep pushing it out. It's kind of a safe way of saying that, look, if we have nothing else to do, then this will come out. But yeah, as it stands, they have a lot to do.
Yeah. But is it like being implemented in a PvP style system, or an actual GVG instance way, or
I think it would be like a PvP style, like a queue up. I think it's a map. So from my understanding is, and I'm not certain, but I do believe that the way it is incorporated is through a queue system in the PvP lobby. That like your party of 10, or you can queue solo, and another party or solo queue of 10 go in. I don't know how the map lays out. I don't know if it's a death match or anything. I can't remember. If it is, that would be kind of cool too. If it is deathmatch, I think we need more deathmatch, large scale, which like the 15v15 would effectively be a deathmatch. So yeah, hopefully they do, find nothing else to do to work on that, because that would be really cool to see in the game.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was wondering because like, I know most people in, at least from who I talked in the World vs World community, they wanted something like that's World vs World style, not like necessarily an instant PvP map. And they have mentioned like, can we have like a instanced Edge of the Mists or something, but like not in the point of like where you have PvP specs. Like you still have like your regular gear as you would in World vs World. So I thought that was interesting because I know they've been working on that, but I didn't know if they like scrapped that idea or not.
Yeah, I think honestly, from my understanding and from my personal experience, I think the GVG community, even the inactives right now, would much rather enjoy the PvP style of balance and the way it is with amulets and the scaling of attacks versus World v World, because I think it's less power creep with the amount of like the crazy stats that you can have in World versus World, where you have like a minstrel, gear set that just pretty much makes you this healing tank bot. Well, you don't have that in PvP. You don't have a minstrel amulet. You have menders, which adds power, but there is a pullback. There's no toughness on that amulet. So, it's one of those things where I think it would appeal to them more to have it in PvP with the PvP balance.
Fair enough. Yeah. I'm really hoping that we can get to see some of that come into play in the expansion. As sad as it is, I mean, this would be really the now or never time for them to release alliances, right? Because alliances was actually like very much a Anthem thing, right? In Guild Wars 1, it released with the factions expansion. and that's when they introduced it. So this really might be the best time to introduce alliances, right? Like it's coming out with End of Dragons, which is also Canton themed. Like, that would be like the best way to call back to Guild Wars 1. So I'm really hoping they can fulfill on that. But we have not heard anything from alliances since the what was the last dev post was, I think maybe 2019.
Yeah, that thing got delayed beyond belief.
Yeah. But I also think it's because they also don't have. I mean, how many people do they even have working in WvW? Like 4 or 5 people. It doesn't seem that
I
much.
think they retired. I think they hired a few old devs back, from what I understand. But yeah, it kind of sucks that they built hyper on it, and then it's still been like what 2-3 years. Like the meme is like, "Oh, happy anniversary" when it was announced. Yeah,
Alliances when.
but what they're probably doing, yeah, right. I think what they're doing is they are. I'm speculating, looking to have that as a feature of the Cantha release. It would be smart, in my opinion, to do that. It would just incentivize more of the sell, of the expansion in business aspects. So I think that's what they're doing. If they don't, maybe they release it like a month after the expansion drops. Um, those are kind of what I think might happen. I don't know, to be honest with you, but yeah, it would be cool to finally see that come to fruition.
Spot saying there's an old dev that's back. I think yeah, there was recently an old senior dev that worked in the WW game mode that recently got back. So I mean, hopefully we get some direction there. But like you said, like when they first announced it, I think it was what was it 2018? So there was already like a year, almost a year into POF. So there was no incentive, I guess, to release it like before.
Come here. Come here.
Hi, bad girl, Chloe.
I'm so sorry. She's somewhat of a guard dog. When she's a door that closes, like it's probably Kara. She starts barking. I don't know why. I'm sorry.
Most dogs are like that. I have like my friend has this German Shepherd, who's like he's like such a baby, like this German Shepherd, right? And he's huge, but when it comes to doors and I don't know what, he just like freaks out and it's like, hey, calm down. But
Yeah, I gotta calm her down. She's good now. Go ahead.
yeah,
What
so
were you
like
saying?
so what I was saying is like, yeah, like the dev is back and like alliances, like you said, might be the best time to do it in the expansion. And I'm kind of wondering, did they at some point realize that like it's so ambitious of a project, and at some point maybe they just decided not to give too much resource to it, and now with this expansion they're like, this is actually the best time, we'll have a selling point, another selling point for the expansion. I don't know if they
Yep.
planned it that way, but if they did, then that would have been I guess, the best way to do it.
I think it's more damage control. I feel like they wanted to do it before, but I feel like the next best step would be to release it with the expansion as a selling point. I don't know if they planned it that way, but I think that's just how it turned out.
Do you
Like
think
they're just like, well, since we can't release it, since we're too slow or too behind, let's just put it in the expansion, and that gives you more time to work on it, and that gives us a better selling point.
do you think they would also probably also end up doing GVGs in the expansion itself? Like, actually, here's the thing. At this point, do you even think we'd receive GVGs? Because they've never commented on that in the slightest. Besides what we heard from the 12v12, I don't think the ANET's ever announced anything to do with GVG, or at least recently, like let's say the last 2 years. They've never even entertained the idea either. So
Yeah, I don't think so. I hate to be like negative about it, but I mean, I just don't expect anything regarded GVGs to be part of the game at all.
I hope get something out of that. But all right, well, we've had some good points actually. So we've covered both PvP and World vs World topics, which we've done in a good amount of time for this podcast. Very proud actually. We kind of had a few sidetracks, but we've actually been able to stay on topic very well. Last week when I had Sam and Enko, we went an extra hour and a half because there's just every time you put 3 barons in the podcast, it doesn't end well. And surprisingly, I've noticed that if it's only me and another guest, like I have only Muckluck to compare to you right now, we've managed to keep it about 2 hours, and I'm very proud of that. So, good job, guys. We got it done.
Let me see. Oh, I just want to kind of see. What do we think that the main point of the next X pack is going to be? Letting new elites. I know they're going to come out with new elites. I think the next point, the next main point of the X pack is going to be new races.
New race.
That's what I think. I think Tengu, or new race, right? I don't know about Largos, but I know some people mentioned they want to be Largos or whatever. I think Tengu is going to be the next selling point, besides the elite specs. I don't know if they could do much more with movement skills like gliding and mounts, but I know they can definitely do that. Obviously, the biggest selling point is the fact that it's very Asian, right? And for whatever reason, Asia appeals to a lot of gamers, especially myself and my wife. She loved Cantha, loved it. So she's excited, hopefully, to get back to Ender Dragon's Cantha.
Yeah, I mean, this was like I mean, we've had game-changing features in HOT and POF. It's honestly hard to think of something that could be game-changing in the next expansion. I mean, come on, we have gliding, we have mounts. What other feature is game-changing? I mean, I could see something like
warriors with stealth and warriors with blinks. Warriors with 3 weapon swaps. That would be game changing.
3 weapon swaps. Okay, that would just be confusing, to be honest. But no, I mean, 3 weapon slots. Honestly, that would actually be game changing, because that would fundamentally change a lot of things in the game. Underwater combat, I wouldn't think that's game changing, because we already have it, even though it's not as good as it is now. It's still surprisingly, actually, underwater combat in Guild Wars 2 is better than underwater combat in some other MMOs, and they didn't even try that much. That's actually a good thing.
Yeah.
To think about it. Like, I don't know, but
we'll see, man. I'm excited for it. I'm excited for Cantha,
yeah. New weapons, I don't know. The only way they could change as well the game is if they made Spear a land weapon.
You know what? Gen 3 legendaries. You heard it here first. Gen 3 legendaries. Let's bring those out.
Gen 3 legendaries. Tradable, hopefully. Because
We'll see, man. I think they need more.
I asked Muckluck, and he said he doesn't want Gen 3s to be tradable, because then it would not be as fulfilling when you get one. And then when I asked Enko and Sam, they both had the opposite opinion, because they wanted them to be tradable because they're barons. So
yeah, honestly, if you were to ask me, I think it's very selfish to not want them tradable. I think all legendaries should be tradable, because I feel that, maybe that is a good way of people of making money with making legendaries. And I feel like there are people who just want to be able to have a legendary that don't really have the time. Like, you can't expect everybody to put in 15 to 20 hours for a legendary, and it's just a weapon cosmetic. I think that's fine in itself, right? It's just a weapon and a cosmetic. Right now, as it stands, everyone has every legendary, you know what I mean, in known existence. Like, so I don't see that being a harm in having Gen 3 sellable.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
That's just
I mean, I agree, just because I
paid, so, Baron, and you want to make money.
I want to make money.
We get it. We get it. You're rich, bro. We get it.
I get the appeal, though. I mean, it really doesn't come with time, because I mean, Gen 2s really take a while. Like, so I really feel like Gen 2s, like, while yes, at the end of the journey of making your legendary, probably Gen 2 is probably more fulfilling, but it's also more time consuming, like you said. So it's just time is really not like, it's not the same for everyone. Everyone else has maybe different commitments in real life that prevent them. And so Gen 3s being tradable would be a big plus, not just as for traders, but also as for people who definitely could at least buy it if they don't have the time to make it.
It's like RuneScape, dude. Like everything's tradable in RuneScape. You know, nobody complains that, oh, the whatever rarest item is not tradable. It's like that is a healthy economy when things are tradable. You know, that's just how I feel.
Yeah. Um. Actually, Guild Wars 2 though, for its economy, it's pretty good though. I would say it's probably one of the best economies I've seen in an MMO, compared to a lot. Uh, but they have also managed to put in a good amount of material and gold sinks, and that's kind of what's held up this economy. Uh,
He says it because he's rich, guys. I'm just kidding.
yeah, no, no. No, I would say it's very balanced.
Yeah.
No, economy is balanced. But okay, I mean, that's really, I guess, any final remarks. If anyone has any other questions, before we get into the closing, now's the time to ask any questions. What would you guys want us to answer about End of Dragons, PvP wise, World vs. World wise? And then after that, we'll get into the closing remarks. You know, Keyba, they don't have many PvP 2v2 tournaments. Like you said, they don't have maybe dedicated 2v2 maps. Like they maybe should dedicate some 2v2 maps or something. You know.
They have a couple. Yeah,
It's just three, I think.
Yeah, well, technically four, I think. Yeah, but one of them isn't used because it's got glitches on it. We just don't talk about it. Let's see. A lot of questions. Let's go down the list. Do we feel the game is balanced? I think I mentioned that earlier. I don't feel like it's very, very balanced right now. I think it's kind of all over the place. There are some classes that definitely are overperforming. Others, like Warriors, just not performing at all. At least in PvP and World v World, I feel like the balance isn't necessarily like we'd mentioned. We want to hit what we want to see Arena do is focus on really optimizing the core specializations for every class and then working on the expansion specs, because you can only have one of those equipped on your trait line versus the other where you can have two core specs. So that and minimizing the area of effects and really diluting passive abilities to making them weaker would be more of a balancing factor. Do we think that there will be alliances for World v World only if they make them, or in general? Do you think there will be alliances? I don't know. Do you want to answer that one?
Well, I think like what we've discussed. I think right now we've talked about maybe they can implement something that's also includes the rest of the game's population, but for the way it's been announced, I think it's just a World vs. World. I don't know if they'll be able to incorporate alliances into the entire game mode. So for now, WvW, unless they announce something.
And I think best class for 3v3 offseason, not that I've played it much, so take this just from my own thought process. I think right now I would say Scourge. Scourge probably would be the best if you're especially solo queuing. Right now, Scourge has really good support, good berry application, has a lot of AoE pressure, has the ability to revive your teammates quick. And some of the skills that you can do, you don't even have to have your opponents either targeted or you don't have to look at them. You can even use your abilities while you're stunned, which is like a stun break, but effectively it's not, right? Your F3, which is your fear on Scourge, you can use that while you're being stunned, even though it's on a stun break. So yeah, Scourge definitely has a lot of good utility to use in 3v3s, especially when that poison gas cloud comes in.
Yeah. Let's see.
Anti-cheat and
Anti-cheat
for what, hacking or the flying or whatnot? Yeah, I think anti-cheat is definitely overdue though. Like, but I don't know if ArenaNet would be able to. Last time they did it, they ended up messing up in like what 6,000 unintentional accounts got banned last time they did that. So yeah, I would like to see more optimized though. I would definitely like to see less fly hacking and less speed hacking in the game itself. I wish they would do something about that. That it is a big problem.
Yeah, I mean, last time we've seen that was in an AT, where a player literally won an AT hacking. and nothing was
He was
done.
flying in the air shooting with the rifle. Yeah.
Yeah. Or spec, by the way. Or spec. So,
Oh my god.
yeah, no. So yeah, I mean, now that we've pretty much wrapped up most of the podcast and everything, so now this is what I do with all guests. If they have anything to talk about, anything they'd like to share with people. So Keyba, the floor is yours. If there's anything you want to let people know, something that you're working on, could be an event, a project, what is going on with you? What would you like to tell the people? The floor is yours.
Dude, I feel like I'm on Hot Ones, bro. Thanks for making my my dream come true. This is like a bucket list right here. Yeah, we'll be on Hot Ones one day. Next time we do this, you definitely have to make sure that we eat hot wings. And okay, so let me say
Done. Wait, before
one
you say
the thing
anything,
I'm doing right now.
before you say anything, done. That next
Okay.
time you and I have a podcast, we're gonna do that, okay?
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you guys don't know already, you could follow me on my YouTube channel. I do more YouTube content than Twitch. Right now, I'm focusing on also streaming every Saturday on YouTube. The main content that we're doing right now is going to be focused on overall, as I mentioned before, giving that knowledge and that experience that I have from years of PvP and World v World to just kind of break it down in a simple, easy to understand format where hopefully it will take you 1/10 of the time to be at that level where you may be in plat or even shooting for a top 250 title. That's my objective, is to give everyone that knowledge. Hopefully by doing so, it's planting the seeds of growing the PvP community and the World versus World community, to have players who are just more interested in the game mode once they completely understand it. So those are what I'm doing right now. We're also looking, I don't know, maybe I'll do a 5v5 tournament, I don't know, that could be something that we work on, I work on, I don't know.
Oh, I'll be down.
So
So maybe I should get in touch with you on the details.
yeah, we could talk about that afterwards if you want, man. Besides that, maybe some 2v2s. But everything's on my YouTube, so feel free to subscribe to my channel there. I post videos every Tuesday and Thursday, and then once again, I try live streaming on Saturday. So that's it.
Nice. Yeah, well, it's been good, man. Yeah, like I said, this is probably the first podcast I have with someone that's actually a close friend of mine, and like we've never met, but like one day, Keyba, one day we're gonna have some chicken wings, and we're gonna go somewhere in Texas, and then you're gonna, get me a Whataburger because I want to know what a Whataburger tastes like. But it's been fun having you on the podcast, man. It's been good. Definitely, always fun to talk to you. Keyba makes very good content in my opinion. Nice to see him on here. Yeah, Keyba has been honestly, guys, very underrated content. If you go to his channel, a lot of helpful tips. I would highly encourage you watch some of his videos, possibly subscribe and support him. He's been delivering a lot of like useful videos that you could look back on months from now and you'd still learn something new. So yeah, Keyba, if there's nothing else you want to say, that is it for us today.
All right, guys. Yep. Thank you all for tuning in and for participating in this awesome podcast. Big shout out to for having me on, and yeah, appreciate it. And we'll do it again sometime.
Definitely. All right. That is it, guys. We gotta rate somebody. Just before we rate somebody, let me just find a quick thing.
I would do T. I don't know if many people are watching Teapot. Yeah. Why are you
Teapot's
so
doing
obsessed?
his hard stuck league PvP tournament. So actually, might as well just do
Don't
that.
tell me.
So.
Bathwater.
Why am I so obsessed about water? No,
Thanks, definitely.
No, I'm obsessed about Evian water. Natural water. Natural springs of Evian. Have you ever tasted Evian water? That's what I like. So, let's go raid Mighty Teapot.
Yeah, he's got a tournament going, so everyone can watch it if they want to. We just talked about PvP. What best way to segue into some PvP?
Yeah, exactly. So that's the perfect segue. So there we go, guys. This VOD will probably go up in a day or so. Yeah. Evian is definitely good. To be fair, you drink that Game Grill bathwater. No, I destroyed that.
Hydrate. Look right here. pH 9, right? pH 9, you're going to get the most alkaline in your water. It's going to be very healthy for you, cleanse your system. You want to get some of this aqua hydrate right here. If you don't,
Aquahydrate.
you want to get some alkaline. Yeah, you want to get some alkaline 8.8. Make sure you have a pH of 7 or above in your water, or else it's very acidic. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay, so maybe I should switch from Evian to that. You know, there's water that sells for like $100, right?
Which one?
Like, I don't know the brand, but there is water that sells for $100. I'm pretty sure it doesn't
Oh.
taste any different, but there is water that tastes. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Tap water's pH. I know we're talking about water now, but I think it's funny. Since you love water so much, I think definitely drink some of that pH 7 or above.
That's the gamer bath water. I mean, yeah, for $100, probably. I mean, can you even tell the difference? For $100, I think Mr. Beast actually drank it, and like he was just like, they taste the same.
No,
Mr. Beast does everything
that's.
actually.
I mean, I don't think it's really bath water, to be honest with you, but
Yeah,
I think it's a niche. I think it's just regular water that she's putting her name on it.
it would be funny if you actually like filmed the content of her scooping it up and putting it into bottles, and then like.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, no. Okay, you know what? Let's go host Teapot, guys. I will see you guys tomorrow. Well, not tomorrow, because tomorrow's my day off. So no stream tomorrow. It's the day off. But go ahead, go put your QAs, questions, suggestions, answers, or anything you want to see in End of Dragons. I'll answer it in the comments. I'm shooting the video tomorrow, so if you want to get your chance to have your comment included in that video, make sure you put your question or suggestion in the YouTube video. And then, of course, this video will probably go live tomorrow as well. All right, love you guys. I'll see you when I see you. Until then, let's go raid Mighty Teapot. Appreciate you all for invalid parameters. Wow, it doesn't want us to raid Mighty Teapot. There we go. All right, take care, guys. We will see you all next time.